This is Lori Valone with Doggone Good Consulting. Together with Suki, Loki, and Isaac, we bring you Doggone Basics, short bites of Power Platform knowledge designed to help you learn or improve your knowledge of the Power Platform products, including Power Automate, Power Apps, and Power BI. Today's topic is screen types. If you've been with us for our prior episodes, you will have seen our step-by-step solutions method, and we are focused on the build step, building our core framework. The application we're using as an example for this series of videos is the Doggone Best Friends app, which is an app to manage pet health and welfare. We used the build app from Data in order to get a starter app created. In our next lesson, we're going to recreate the same app starting from a blank Canvas app. But today I thought, as a precursor to that, we'd take a look at the screen types that you can use when you create a new screen, since that's the first thing we'll need to do next time when we create our app. Now, I almost always, when I'm creating an app, find myself choosing the blank screen type. But as you can see here, there are actually 10 different screen types you can use. And these different screen types can give you a leg up, or I think even more valuably, they can help show you how to do certain things in your Power App by using these other non-blank screen types. Certain portions of the functionality are already built in for you, and so you can see how does an app typically handle a gallery or an edit form. And so even if you like to start with a blank canvas like I do, you can learn a good bit from playing with these screen types. So what I want to do is just quickly run through the 10 screen types and talk about where you might use them, some examples maybe where I've used them, and give you a basic understanding so that when you are starting to create your types, your apps, you can decide which type is most applicable for you. So the first screen type, and the one I most commonly use, is blank. Blank gives you just what it says, a screen that exists with nothing on it. And from there you can connect to data, or you can start to insert fields from the Insert tab. Now, as I said, use this most of the time because I typically am starting with a blank sheet of paper. I have an idea of what I want it to look like, and I just start adding the components that I want to have on that page. But you don't have to do that. The second type of screen, and one that I just recently started to work with, is this scrollable canvas. Now, I don't have a lot of need for scrollable canvas, but because I tend to try to keep my UI as compact as possible. And a blank will allow you to scroll a gallery, which is typically what I want to scroll, and I try to keep all my other data on that screen. But I recently had the opportunity to work on an application where there were more fields than could be reasonably contained on one screen, and the original designer of the app did not want to have multiple tabs, and so they used a scrollable screen. A scrollable screen is going to look a little bit different in terms of what you're going to see over here. Right? You're going to have this canvas, which has a little question mark icon on it, and within the canvas you're going to see that a data card has been added. You can then insert your galleries, your labels, all of the other things you want to display inside that data card. And you'll also notice down here this add section. So if I had perhaps a gallery at the top and maybe another section with a different gallery, I could add a section and it's going to add another data card into which I can again put other controls. And this whole page, as you can see, there's a scroll bar down the side. This whole page then is scrollable, and each of these sections is sizable. So now I can scroll farther down. Okay, and so in this particular application that I did recently, which was a project status application, this particular screen type was very helpful to be able to represent all of the information that this particular user wanted to see. I probably will not use it a lot, but where you need that ability, start with a scrollable screen rather than just a blank. With your blank, you're only getting what fits on that screen plus any scrolling of a gallery that you've put on there. Okay. The next type we have here is a list. And this is where we start getting into the screen types that you can learn from. So if I create a list, it's going to create a blank screen, and it's going to go ahead and put a gallery and a search and a sort and a refresh already on the screen for me. So this would be very helpful to build the browse screen. Effectively, that's what it's creating for me here. You'll notice it's created a browse gallery, which is here's our gallery, and inside of that are a number of fields. There's the separator bar, the arrow to allow you to get to a detail page, title, subtitle, and image. And if I didn't need an image, for example, maybe this is all text for me, I could still use this list type and then just go delete the image and say, yeah, I don't need an image on this one. Okay, I just need title and subtitle. Now, you'd notice it introduced an error here because there were certain other fields here that were dependent on that image. And so I would need to make some changes if I decided to remove the image, but I can do that. Okay, so it could be very valuable as a place to start. Additionally, it can show me some of the ways to build syntax. So you'll notice this browse gallery is set up with a sort by columns and a search. And so this is the syntax for building that. If you need help in building sorted searchable galleries, here's a great way to see one in operation that you can then modify to fit your needs. So the fourth type of screen is going to be a form. And here we see that it's added an edit form. But that edit form has not yet been attached to any data. We need to choose a data source to link. And then once we do, then the form will be populated with all of the fields that are part of that data source. And again, we can see how that was done. We can see the use of the data cards and the fields that are within it, and the syntax of the commands that are here. Now, one thing to always remember when you're using a form is to be able to change anything, you've got to unlock to be able to change those properties. Okay, but this is a good way to see how a form, an edit form in particular, is set up. So this would be very useful in our sample app here if we were recreating this edit screen. And so potentially we can use this when we get to that in one of our future episodes. The next type of screen is a success screen. Okay, this might be used to indicate to a user that some type of an update has been completed. I don't typically use that in my apps, but I did find this screen to be helpful when I needed to put a not authorized message on the screen. And I wanted it to be very clear and in your face that a user had tried to access a function that they were not authorized for. And so I changed this check mark to the icon for a big red X. And I changed the message, this label success message, to say that they'd accessed a function that they weren't authorized for, and if they thought they'd reached it in error, to contact someone for help. And so it was very quick. Sure, I could have added a blank screen and I could have put these things on it, but in a matter of a few seconds, I was able to take the screen and quickly turn it into what I wanted because these things were already in existence on that screen. So just helpful. The next one that I've also found helpful is what is referred to here as a tutorial screen. And I used it to provide my help for an app I recently developed. And as a matter of fact, I had 4 different versions of this, so 4 different tutorial screens, depending, because I was providing role specific help. And in one of them, I think I only had 4 pages of help. In another, I had about 7 pages of help, and I chose not to use this skip feature that they have included. But the way this works is it's simply you can click on the arrow to advance through your screens, and you notice this dot moves. I could also click on the dot to change. And it's set up with a table where I can put in an image and then I can put in my text. So I had screenshots here and text about it down here, and it allowed me to provide in-app help very easily for my application. So I found that to be very valuable. And so by looking at how they handle that in here in this tutorial navigator and how the table is built, and then what gets done when somebody makes a selection from there, and how they move about the app. Again, a great place to learn how to develop this, whether you want to use this as your base or whether you just want to learn the concepts and then create your own from scratch. Now, these last 4 options all require the REST API and require you to have an account that has the email access. I don't have that in this particular environment. And so if your environment is like this and for some reason does not have these features, you'll get an error adding screen. And if you expand this, you'll see REST API is not supported. Okay, so it is possible that you might not be able to use email, people, meeting, or calendar because all of those need the Office 365 interface to be able to access. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually change accounts to an account that I have that does have these capabilities. Okay. I've switched to an alternate account that does have access to these features so that I can quickly show you these final 4 screen types. Again, I've not used any of these 4, but I can see them as quick ways to add a email capability, or to be able to access a people search, or to be able to provide calendar functionality. These all tie into that Office 365 interface. So if I add an email form, an email screen, then it's going to create a screen, and it's already got this functionality right on the screen. So if I want to go into play mode, if I want to say I want to find myself in this list, and you see it's added me here, I can say test, this is a test message, and I can send that email. Okay, so that functionality is all built in directly to this template. And you'll notice if I go here to the send, then it shows me the syntax for doing a send with the information that has been collected here in this particular template. Okay, so if you need to send an email, that's one way to be able to get a base to do it. Of course, you could create all this from scratch. This is just created and given here as a time saver and a thought starter for you. Next, we have the people search, which is more or less an abbreviated version of what we saw in the email. If I put in a name, it's going to pop up the picture, if there's one available, as well as the email address, and allow me to select that, and it will add it into a list. Okay, and I can add more, and this is a gallery here that will simply display the selected values for people. I have a meeting template screen which has the capability to add to create an invitation where I can invite you. Notice that this is using the same gallery because my name's already painted in there. So I could create a meeting invitation, or I can schedule a meeting. I come to this tab and you'll notice, so here's a great example of a tabbed interface. So if you're wanting to include a tabbed interface in one of your apps and you're not quite sure how to make it work, come take a look at the meeting screen. Add the meeting screen to your app, and then you'll see how you can make this perform as a tabbed screen. So if I tab here, if I go to this tab, I can schedule. So I'm going to say tomorrow and pick that as my date, and I want a half an hour. Here, right now I'm the only attendee because over in the list. So all attendees are available because I'm going to meet with myself. And so I can select a time, and it'll actually then give me a list of available rooms. If this was a in-person meeting, I could select a room, and again I can send the meeting invitation. So to me, this is most useful for learning how to do these things. It's unlikely that I'm going to use these screens exactly as they are in my app, but they're very valuable for seeing how did they do that. The final screen type is the calendar, which will put a interface to the various Office 365 calendars that are available. You have the birthday calendar, your business calendar. I'm going to go out here into play. So let's take the United States holidays calendar, and if I click on a date, it's going to show me a gallery here that contains the holiday information that is stored in this calendar. The same is true of the standard calendar, which will have the events that I might have on any given day. Let's see, on Friday I had to send a weekly report. Okay, so obviously any day with a dot there is an event. And if I had multiple events taking place on a day, then they would all be listed here, as this is a gallery. Again, this is not necessarily one that I would use intact exactly as it is, but it's one that I can use to see how can I set up calendar interactions. If I make a selection of a date over here in the gallery, then how do I get that to show me the information that appears in this gallery? What's the relationship between the two? You can see here the let's scroll down here so we can access it. So we have the calendar events gallery, and here is the sort by columns based on my calendar events. Okay, so again, a great opportunity to learn. So just kind of wrapping up here, there are 10 different types of screens that you can use to make it easier to work with apps, and I highly recommend that you try playing with these different screen types to learn more about which screen we use. In our next lesson, we'll be going back and starting with a blank screen and replicating what happened in our last lesson where we created a screen from data. Thank you for joining us today on Doggone Basics, and we hope you will join us for our next session.